3 months after burying my husband, I was still learning how to breathe again. When, right in the middle of my nephew's first birthday party, my younger sister stood up, raised her glass, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, Lucas isn't Tyler's son. He's Adam's, your husband. And according to the new will, half of the $800,000 house belongs to him. Gasps rippled through the room. I felt dozens of eyes on me, some dripping with pity, others with that sharp, poisonous curiosity that feeds on someone else's pain. And then she pulled out a piece of paper, Adam's will, his signature plain as day. What Cassandra didn't know was that I was holding on to a secret, one so powerful it could shatter her perfect story in seconds. A truth that would turn her little game to ashes right in front of everyone. If you think you've heard the worst family betrayal stories, you're not ready for what comes next. Because what happened after that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the word family. But before I reveal the truth, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe so you don't miss the moment I dismantle her lies. I swallowed my rage, forcing myself to look calm, like I believed every poisonous word she just spoke, because I wanted Cassandra to dig her own grave with her own mouth. I set my glass down, stepped forward until we were face to face. The space between us felt like a battlefield. May I see that will? I asked, my voice so soft some people thought I'd just surrendered. She hesitated, then slowly handed it to me. My eyes scanned the page, those familiar words, that almost perfect signature. Almost. The tiny mistakes only Adam and I would notice. My heartbeat slowed. The game had just shifted into my control. I folded the paper and handed it back. Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you for showing me the perfect moment to open a gift Adam left for me. A few guests frowned. Others started whispering. Cassandra smirked, thinking she'd won, thinking I was retreating. She had no idea. I was letting her bind herself tighter with every passing minute. When I walked out the door, my mind was clear. Wait, Cassandra. I'll show you exactly how far Adam went to protect me. And to understand why I could stand there, calm in the middle of that storm of humiliation, you need to know how Adam and I met, and why our love, even without children, was unshakable. Adam, the man who loved me, when the world called me incomplete. I met Adam on a night neither of us could have guessed would change everything. I was volunteering at a charity auction to raise funds for children with cancer. The entire evening, I kept my head down, arranging chairs, fixing name cards, making sure everything looked perfect. No one really noticed me until I stopped in front of a painting of Boston at sunset. The orange and purple melted into the water, so peaceful it made me forget where I was. That's when I saw him, a tall man with an easy confidence and eyes the color of deep ocean water. He wasn't mingling or working the room like everyone else. He walked straight toward the painting. When the bidding started, Adam went higher than everyone else, and when he won, he didn't keep it. He brought it to me, smiling. I saw you looking at it all night. It should be yours. I stammered. How did you? He shrugged. Because I've been looking at you all night too. We had our first date the very next evening. No small talk, no games. With Adam, everything was effortless, like we'd known each other forever. He was a successful lawyer, but humble enough to remember every waiter's name and ask how they really were. 8 months later, he proposed at the harbor, kneeling with shaking hands, the skyline behind him glowing just like that first painting. Bridget, will you give me the honor of walking through life with you? Through tears, I laughed. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. We bought a Victorian home in Beacon Hill, $800,000, a stretch for both of us, but worth it. In that house, we dreamed of a family. I thought love would be enough to make it happen, but life doesn't always work that way. First came the months of hope. Then came the one-line pregnancy tests, the red X's on the calendar, the doctor visits, and then IVF. 4 rounds. 4 times my body was pumped full of hormones. 4 times I held my breath between hope and heartbreak. 4 times Adam held me as I cried without sound. The last time IVF failed, we drove home in silence. No music, no small talk. Adam squeezed my hand and whispered, "We still have each other, Bridget. That's all that matters." I turned my face toward the window, swallowing hard. I wish I believed that was enough. That night, we sat on the porch swing under a quiet sky. Adam looked straight into my eyes. "We can still have a beautiful life, Bridget. As long as I have you, I have everything I need." I nodded, but inside there was an emptiness I couldn't explain. Not because I didn't trust him. God, I trusted him more than anyone. But because I knew the truth. Out there, the world would never see me as enough. Society still whispers that a woman who can't have children is somehow incomplete. And the cruelest part? Sometimes, even your own family believes it. Even Cassandra, my younger sister, once hinted that I was forcing myself to fit a family mold, forgetting that she'd never once seen me as whole in the first place. Adam was the only one who refused to let me drown in that shame. We poured ourselves into our work. He encouraged me when I opened my own interior design firm. We traveled. We restored our old Victorian home into the warm, dreamlike space I'd always imagined. Our love wasn't a fairy tale. It was the love of two people facing an unchangeable truth that not all dreams come true, and still choosing to stay, still building something new from the broken pieces. And maybe that's why later, when Cassandra made her most vicious accusation, it didn't just stab me in the back. It was a blade straight through the best memories of my life, the memories of a man who loved me completely, even when the world called me flawed. Cassandra, the shadow that always tried to swallow me. Cassandra, my sister, 4 years younger. On the surface, she's the kind of person everyone wants to be around. Beautiful, charming, the kind of charm that makes you feel like you're the center of the universe. But I know better. That charm was just gloss over an impatient, restless personality, always wanting more than me, always needing to be more than me, even when she didn't need it. We'd been in an unspoken race since childhood. When I studied hard to be at the top of my class, Cassandra worked to be the girl everyone noticed at dances. When I got into a prestigious design school, she changed her profile picture to one with a few law students, just so she could casually mention she had lawyer friends. The competition wasn't even the worst part. The real problem was how my parents always covered for her. I still remember she once bought an expensive designer bag using my parents' credit card. I thought this time she'd finally be scolded. Instead, my mom smiled, patted her shoulder, and said, "A young woman should enjoy nice things." Me? The time I bought a designer chair for my office, using my own savings, my mom frowned. "You should save that money. You never know what might happen later." The unfairness seeped into everything. When Cassandra lost a job, which happened often, my parents would help her pay rent or cover her credit card debt. When I needed emotional support after yet another failed IVF, all I got was, "You're strong, you'll get through it." Sometimes I wondered if they'd ever realize that the strong one needed to be held too, the same way they always circled around the weak one. Cassandra couldn't keep a job for more than 6 months. She loved novelty but crumbled under pressure. Every time she quit, she had a new tragic story that made people pity her, and my parents, without fail, believed her, rescued her, and cleaned up the mess. I remember one evening after dinner, the phone rang. Cassandra was crying. "Sis, Tyler left me. I can't pay rent." I was about to respond, but Adam rested his hand on my shoulder, shaking his head. "Don't." He knew, just like I did, that this would repeat itself. And every time it ended the same way. My parents stepped in, and I was branded cold for not rushing to the rescue. When Cassandra was in a good mood, things between us were fine. But when she wanted something, nothing could stand in her way. And if I accomplished something, she'd find a way to match it or top it. When Adam and I bought our Beacon Hill home, I expected my family to be happy for us. Cassandra's first words? "That place must have cost a fortune. You planning to let me crash there?" she said with a laugh that wasn't a joke. Then came Tyler, a rugged bartender with tattoos running down his arm, riding the motorcycle my parents called a death trap. Their relationship was a loop of fights, breakups, and makeups. Until one Thanksgiving, Cassandra stood up, hand on her stomach, and announced, "I'm pregnant." Shock rippled through the room. This was the same sister who had mocked motherhood, who had once sneered at me for forcing myself to chase the dream of being a mom. And now she had fallen into the very thing I had wanted most and could never have. I swallowed every bitter feeling, smiled, and hugged her, because no matter what, Lucas, the baby inside her, was my nephew. And I promised myself I'd be the best aunt I could be. But being the good aunt to Cassandra's child wasn't like the heartwarming stories people tell. Within weeks of Lucas's birth, my phone was flooded with calls and texts. Cassandra complained about sleepless nights, exhaustion, and Tyler not helping. I rearranged my schedule to be there, even taking Lucas overnight so she could rest. Adam kept his distance. He was polite, but never attached to Lucas the way I did. At the time, I thought maybe it was because it stirred up too much pain about what we couldn't have. I didn't know that his distance would one day become a crucial piece of a truth Cassandra could never see coming. Cassandra had lived so long in a bubble of unconditional rescue that she didn't know the difference between help and boundaries. She didn't know how to stop asking, and when she didn't get what she wanted, she'd find another way, even if it meant twisting the truth, even if it meant stepping on someone else. Some people grow up knowing there's always someone to clear the path, catch them when they fall, and take the blame for their mistakes. Cassandra was one of those people, and my parents made sure she stayed that way. I never imagined that unconditional protection would one day turn into a weapon pointed directly at me, right when I was at my weakest. And when it finally struck, it didn't just hurt, it tore apart the image of the sister I thought was family. The red flags I ignored, and the price I paid. There are moments I wish I could go back and slap myself hard. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see it all from the start? With Cassandra, it started small, so subtle. A glance that lingered too long, a half-joking comment, the way she always found a reason to stand just a little too close to Adam. At the time, I told myself, no, she's my sister. She would never. But that blind faith was exactly what opened the door. The first time I truly noticed was during a family dinner at our place. The warm glow of the dining room light danced on glasses of red wine. I stepped out to take a quick client call, just a few minutes. When I came back, I froze. Cassandra had moved her chair closer to Adam, her hand resting lightly on his arm, giggling. "You're lucky, Bridget. Men like him, they're rare." Adam subtly leaned away, his smile polite but tight. I told myself, she's had a little wine. She probably doesn't realize the distance. And then I let it go. But those just moments kept multiplying. One night, Adam handed me his phone. On the screen was a text from Cassandra, sent close to midnight. "If you don't appreciate him, someone else will." My stomach dropped, ice flooding my veins. But Adam took my hand and said firmly, "I don't want to hide anything from you, and I don't want this to destroy your relationship with her. But you need to know." I swallowed my anger. "You did the right thing. Thank you for telling me." I thought, naively, that honesty would end it. It didn't. One afternoon, Adam called from work. His tone was unusually sharp. "Guess who just showed up at my office unannounced?" I didn't even need to guess. "Don't tell me." "Cassandra." This time, she brought lunch. Said she wanted to surprise me. I told her no and sent her home. "But Bridget, I don't want this happening again." That night, we sat in the living room. No overhead lights, just the dim golden glow of a table lamp. The air felt heavy. "I think it's time we keep our distance," Adam said. "Not just me, both of us. I know you love your family, but I can't leave the door open for things like this." I nodded, my heart sinking. I didn't want to cut back on family time, but he was right. From then on, we avoided dinners if Cassandra would be there. Adam never let himself be alone with her. Eventually, he even blocked her number after one more inappropriate text. And every time I saw her name flash on my phone, another little piece of trust crumbled. I told my parents once, hoping they'd understand. My mother frowned. "Adam's probably overreacting. Cassandra's just friendly." My father added, "Your sister's always been playful. Don't blow it out of proportion." I bit my tongue. I knew, no matter what I said, they would never believe Cassandra could cross a line. We thought keeping our distance would protect us. But in the end, that silence became the perfect weapon. Because when Adam was gone, Cassandra used that distance like a puzzle piece to build the cruelest story she could, at the exact moment I was most broken. Back then, I thought, at least we've prevented anything worse. The truth? I'd only stepped back far enough for her to have more room to stage something even more vicious. And the bitterest part is realizing every warning sign had been there from the beginning. I just chose to ignore them. And the price for that mistake was my dignity, my peace, and the image of my marriage in front of everyone I loved. The just-in-case file. Adam's last shield. About a year after Cassandra's failed attempts at flirting, Adam started complaining of a dull ache in his lower abdomen. At first, he brushed it off, blaming work stress, long business trips, endless back-to-back meetings. But I noticed, sometimes when he thought no one was watching, he'd wince and press a hand against his side. The pain got worse, so bad he couldn't focus in meetings. Sometimes he had to stand and walk around just to manage it. I urged him to see a doctor over and over. Adam, ever the workaholic, kept putting it off. Until one night, the pain kept him awake. The next morning, I gave him no choice. We went to the hospital. I will never forget the doctor's face, serious, but not unkind. "You have varicocele, an enlargement of the veins inside the scrotum. In your case, it's severe. Surgery is necessary. Without it, the pain will worsen, and the risk of recurrence is high." The diagnosis that changed everything. The room went silent for a few seconds. Adam locked eyes with the doctor and asked the question we were both thinking. Will this affect my ability to have children? The doctor sighed, weighing each word. If you want to address this fully, I recommend combining the surgery with a vasectomy. I know you've tried to have children before, but this will prevent recurrence and protect you from long-term complications. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. 4 failed rounds of IVF had already shredded us, and now this would slam the last door shut. Adam turned to me. He didn't need to say anything. I knew this decision wasn't just about health. It was about our future. He gripped my hand, voice steady and sure. I'm not risking my health. We've already been down that road. Now I just want to live well with you. The surgery went smoothly. A month later, the tests confirmed it. The vasectomy had been successful. From that moment on, Adam could never father a child. We decided to keep this a secret, not because we were ashamed, but because we knew if my family, especially Cassandra, found out, they would never stop digging at that wound. And from that secret, Adam began talking about preparing for every possibility. One crisp autumn afternoon, we sat on the porch, warm mugs in hand. Adam set his coffee down, his voice low and serious. I don't want you caught off guard, especially with Cassandra. She's not gonna stop. One day, she's gonna do something worse. A shiver ran through me. You really think so? Adam didn't blink. I don't know when, but I know it will happen. And that's when the just in case file was born. We met with James Wilson, Adam's trusted attorney for years. In his office, Adam laid it all out. Every inappropriate text, every time Cassandra showed up at his workplace, the surgery, the vasectomy. James listened without interrupting, then finally said, I advise you to document everything. Legal wills, medical records, texts, journals, anything that proves the truth. If you never need it, great. But if the day comes, it might be the only thing that protects you. That day, Adam signed a new will, leaving everything to me. We made certified copies of his medical files, printed every message from Cassandra, and Adam began keeping a meticulous journal, dates, times, every word or gesture from her that crossed a line. All of it went into a thick binder, sealed and locked in our bank's safety deposit box. On the largest envelope, Adam wrote in bold letters, Bridget, open only if you have to. I had no idea then that Adam's almost obsessive caution would become the only shield I had left when Cassandra launched her cruelest attack, right after he was gone. The day Adam left. 3 years after the varicocele surgery, life finally felt steady again. Adam was healthy, working steadily, still the man who made me laugh whenever stress threatened to crush me. We had accepted the truth that we'd never have children and poured our love into each other, but peace never stays for long. One morning, Adam mentioned a dull ache in his back and sudden weight loss. At first, we thought it was fatigue or job stress, but when the pain grew sharper, I dragged him to the doctor. When the results came back, I'll never forget the doctor's eyes, serious, regretful. Adam, you have pancreatic cancer, stage 3. It was like the air was sucked out of the room. Adam didn't ask questions. He didn't flinch. He simply placed his hand on my thigh and gave it a gentle squeeze. A few days later, when it was just the two of us in the living room, Adam finally spoke. I don't want you to panic. We're going to fight this, but I want you to be prepared. We dove into treatment, chemo, radiation, endless days in the hospital where the smell of antiseptic clung to our clothes. Every time I watched him struggle to swallow a spoonful of soup or force a smile when I tried to cheer him up, a voice inside me screamed, "Why him? Why not me?" Adam's strength faded quickly. His once thick hair thinned and fell. His strong, veined hands became fragile. But in his eyes, there was still that proud, steady gaze, the look of the man who had shielded me from every storm. One rainy night, he called me to the bed. "Bridget, if there comes a day when I'm not here, you keep living. Don't let Cassandra or anyone steal your peace." I broke down, pressing my face into his shoulder. "Don't talk like that. We're going to make it through." He gave a faint smile. "I hope so, but I've already left everything. You know where? In the just in case file." I hated hearing those words, but I knew he was right. That winter, the disease took over. In his final days, Adam slipped in and out of consciousness, but even then, his hand would still search for mine out of habit. That morning, when the first sunlight broke through the curtains, his hand loosened, and I knew. The man who had walked beside me through the proudest years of my life was gone. The funeral was simple, just as he wanted. I stood by his photo, memorizing that smile one last time. In the crowd, Cassandra appeared in a black dress, her eyes glassy with tears. Yet behind them, I caught something else, a glint, a calculation. I didn't know it then, but the moment of my deepest loss was also the opening move in a brutal war Adam had seen coming all along. The birthday that broke everything. Lucas's first birthday. On paper, it should have been a day filled with laughter, toasts, and sweet wishes for a little boy. In reality, it became one of the deepest cuts of my life. The party room at my parents' house was decked out, clusters of blue and white balloons, a lace-covered table piled high with pastries and champagne glasses. In the corner, Cassandra chatted animatedly, her red dress hugging her frame, her pale skin glowing under the lights. To anyone looking in, she was the picture of a radiant, happy mother. I sat at a table near the window, holding a glass of water, forcing polite smiles as guests came by to make small talk. 3 months had passed since Adam's death, and I still hadn't learned how to breathe without feeling my chest hollow out. But for Lucas, I made myself show up. I didn't want his day to be tainted by the grief of adults. Cassandra had other plans. The sharp clink of glasses rang out, pulling everyone's eyes toward her. I assumed she was going to thank the guests, but when I saw her smile, it wasn't gratitude. It was the sly, poised smile of someone about to play their trump card. She began slowly. "Today is Lucas's first birthday, and I want to share something I've kept in my heart for far too long." The room stilled. People leaned in. "Lucas," she said, chin high, "is not Tyler's son." A ripple of whispers shot through the crowd. I could feel eyes turning toward me, as if they already knew what was coming next. "He's Adam's son, Bridget's husband." The air seemed to drop 10 degrees. A few people gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others looked down at their drinks. My eyes locked on Cassandra, but in my ears, all I could hear was the slow, heavy thud of my own heartbeat, and she wasn't done. From her purse, she pulled out a folded sheet of paper, opened it, and held it high. "This is Adam's new will, signed, notarized. It states that half of Adam's house will belong to Lucas." Soft gasps, murmured, "Oh my God," from somewhere in the back. Some faces turned toward me with pity. Others with something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. I stared at that paper. A part of me wanted to march across the room, rip it from her hand, and shred it to pieces. But another part of me was calm, too calm, because I knew every word she'd just spoken, every proof she was holding, would crumble to dust the moment they came face to face with the truth I had been keeping. Cassandra stepped closer, just enough so the people around us could hear. "I don't want to hurt you, Bridget," she said, her voice smooth, "but I think the truth should be known. Adam wanted Lucas to have a secure future." I didn't answer right away. I just looked her dead in the eye, a look I knew she had never seen from me before. It wasn't the patient gaze of an older sister anymore. It was the look of someone ready to hit back. "Lucas's future," I said slowly, "will not be built on lies." Her eyes flickered. For a split second, that smug confidence faltered, but she quickly straightened, turning to the guests. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth, and if Bridget wants to dispute it, she's welcome to try." The murmurs in the room swelled again. I knew they were waiting for a screaming match. But no, I wasn't going to waste my breath in a room where half the people had already been swayed by her story. I set my glass down, stood, and smiled. "Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you for showing me the perfect moment to open a gift Adam left for me." Before she could react, I turned and walked out, past the rows of chairs, past the whispers that chased me to the door. I didn't care. I knew exactly what I had to do next, because if Cassandra thought she'd just landed the killing blow, she had chosen the wrong opponent. The evidence that couldn't be denied. After Lucas's birthday party, I drove straight home. Street lights slid past my window like cold streaks of light. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't crack a window. My whole body felt like a wire pulled tight, every turn of the wheel ratcheting it closer to snapping. One thought pulsed in my head. It's time to open the just in case file. I had no interest in arguing with Cassandra or enduring the pitying looks of people who'd only heard one side of the story. I needed truth. I needed proof. I needed exactly what Adam had prepared for me years ago. The next morning, I went to the bank. The sky was heavy and gray, as if it too knew what this day meant. The branch manager, an older man who'd known both me and Adam for years, looked up when I walked in. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said quietly, "I'm very sorry for your loss, Bridget." He led me down a quiet hallway to a small room. On the table sat a silver gray safe deposit box. The key turned. The lock clicked. A sharp sound in the silence that made my pulse skip. Inside, everything was arranged with meticulous, almost obsessive care. Adam's legal will signed and notarized, leaving everything to me. Medical records confirming his vasectomy 2 years before Lucas was born. Irrefutable proof Adam could not be the boy's father. Adam's handwritten journal documenting every time Cassandra crossed the line. What she said, what she did, when it happened, and even who had witnessed it. Printed text messages between Adam and Cassandra, some veiled, some so brazen that my skin still crawled reading them. A signed statement from James Wilson, Adam's attorney, confirming he had personally witnessed the signing of Adam's will and kept an original copy in his own files. And at the very bottom, a white envelope, Adam's handwriting across the front. "Bridget, open only if you must." I sat there for a moment, my hands trembling as I tore through the seal. Inside was a letter, several pages long. "My dearest Bridget, if you're reading this, it means what I feared has happened. I wish I could be there to protect you myself, but if I can't, I want you to use every document in this box. I know you've always put family above all else, but not everyone with that title deserves your trust. You deserve to be safe. I love you, and I always will, even if I'm not here. I folded the letter carefully, but the tears still fell onto the table. Adam had thought through every detail, every possible blow, long before I'd even dared imagine this nightmare could come true. I placed every document into a locked briefcase. Each page, each date, each word was a brick Adam had laid years in advance to build a wall around me. And now, I was going to turn that wall into a fortress. The first move in the war with Cassandra. Stepping out of the bank, the cold wind slapped against my face, but I didn't shiver. I clutched the briefcase to my chest like a silent oath. The game Cassandra had just started would end in a way she'd never see coming. And the first step was to see James Wilson, the only person besides me who truly understood the value of every single page inside. 2 days later, I walked into James's office. The familiar scent of oak and the warm amber light from his desk lamp made it feel like nothing had changed since the last time Adam and I sat here together. James looked the same, tailored gray suit, thin-framed glasses, the kind of calm, razor-sharp gaze that made you believe nothing in the world could knock him off balance. When he saw me, he stood and gripped my hand firmly. It wasn't just a handshake, it was a promise. "I heard about the party, Bridget. Are you ready to begin?" I set the briefcase on his desk and unzipped it. The metallic click echoed in the quiet room, followed by the sight of Adam's carefully prepared arsenal of documents. They sat there in neat stacks, like a small army waiting for orders. James went through each file slowly, his expression focused. When he finished, he leaned back, nodding with quiet approval. A hint of a smile tugged at his lips. Adam thought farther ahead than most people ever could. "You have everything we need to dismantle Cassandra's story." I straightened in my seat, wrapping my fingers tighter around my coffee cup to steady them. I don't just want to prove she's lying. I want to destroy that victim image she's built for herself. James's smile deepened, just slightly, the kind of smile a lawyer gives when he knows he's about to win. Then we start with the one thing she can't dispute, Adam's medical records. From there, we'll build a chain of evidence that tells one airtight story. He took a notepad and wrote out a 3-step plan. Lock it down legally. James would file an official notice with the court confirming Adam's real will, backed by the original stored in his office. Any forged document Cassandra tried to push would be invalid on arrival. Seal the weak point. Adam's vasectomy records and surgical confirmation would be re-verified directly by the hospital and surgeon, stamped, signed, and notarized, leaving Cassandra with zero room for doubt. Controlled counterattack. Only if necessary, the printed texts and Adam's documented encounters with Cassandra would be released, not as smear, but to shatter the innocent victim mask she'd been wearing. James met my eyes. "I know you want to keep the family's image intact, but this fight can't be fought while worrying about hurt feelings." The ticking clock was loud in the silence. Finally, I nodded. If Adam prepared me to fight, I'm not backing down. We spent nearly 3 hours combing through every page, James arranging them in chronological order, marking the dates that lined up exactly with Lucas's conception. The cold clinical facts began forming a picture, one Cassandra would never want the world to see. When the late afternoon light spilled across the window, James gathered the files into a fresh sealed envelope and slid it across the desk. "Keep this close. And Bridget, when you're ready to hit back, call me. We won't give her time to pivot." I left his office with the envelope in my hands, walking through the golden glow of a Boston evening. The hum of traffic faded behind me, leaving only the steady sound of my own footsteps. What I carried wasn't just paper. It was a blueprint Adam and I had built together, a barricade against the woman who had belittled me, disrespected my husband, and now aimed to trample his memory. What Cassandra didn't know was that the war she thought she was leading had been mapped out by Adam and me years before she even made her first move, and this time I wasn't going to give her the chance to flip the board. The truth laid bare. The family meeting took place on a gray Sunday afternoon. My parents' living room, once the backdrop to warm dinners and laughter, felt suffocatingly cold. Faded light slipped through the curtains, stretching long shadows across the tiled floor. No one spoke when I walked in. The only sound was the steady tick, tick, tick of the wall clock, like it was counting down to the explosion. Cassandra sat across from me in a beige sweater, hair tied neatly in a bun, but her legs bounced beneath the table. Her eyes were a mix of defiance and unease. My parents sat between us, faces tight with anxiety. Beside me stood James Wilson, my attorney, his hand resting on the heavy leather briefcase, like a bomb waiting to go off. I didn't waste time. Cass, I began, my voice calm but so cold I felt it in my own bones. I'm not here for more accusations. I'm here for the truth, and I'm putting everything on the table, so it has nowhere left to hide. I popped the locks. The sound snapped through the room. One by one, I laid the documents out in perfect order, like hammers ready to fall. Adam's real will, signed and notarized, leaving everything to me. Certified medical records from Massachusetts General confirming Adam's vasectomy 3 years before Lucas was born. Adam's handwritten journals detailing every time Cassandra crossed the line. Dates, locations, words, even witnesses. Printed text messages between Adam and Cassandra, some so brazen they still made my skin crawl. I looked directly at my sister. Lucas was born in May, 2 years after the surgery. You know what that means. No doctor on earth could have made Adam his biological father. Her eyes flickered, her face paling, but she forced her jaw tight. My mother covered her mouth. My father's hands gripped the armrests until the veins stood out. I didn't stop. Which means the story you told at Lucas's birthday was a lie. You stood in front of Adam's memory and you lied to steal his home. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Finally, Cassandra took a sharp breath and blurted, almost tripping over her own words. I lied. Lucas is Tyler's son. Adam never. And that will, it's fake. Tyler lost his job. We were drowning in debt. I thought, if I could get part of the house, we'd be okay. My mother broke into sobs. My father stayed silent, eyes heavy with something between shame and disappointment. I turned to them. Do you see? This is what happens after years of covering for her. This time it's stealing a house. Next time? Who knows? My mother's voice shook. But she's your sister. I cut her off, low but firm. Exactly. And because she's my sister, I've let it go for too long. But as of today, there are boundaries. No more blind rescues. No more blaming circumstances. Family is not a shield for wrongdoing. Facing Cassandra again, the anger was still there, but exhaustion had crept in. I could take this to court, but I'll give you one chance. One. The room held its breath as I laid out my terms. A public apology to our family and every guest from Lucas's birthday party. Therapy, at least 6 months, to learn accountability and independence. Financial independence, no more leaning on me or our parents, and no second attempt at this stunt. In return, I said evenly, I won't press charges, and I'll help support Lucas, because none of this is his fault. But my help stops with him, not you." Her eyes glistened. She swallowed hard, then gave a small nod. "Okay." I gathered the documents back into the case, the way you might close a trial without needing a judge. Standing, I gave her one last look. "What you did that day cut the last thread holding us together." The room was silent as I walked to the door. The click of it closing sounded final, like a period at the end of a long, bitter sentence. Outside, the late afternoon sun hit the cobblestone street in golden light. I breathed deep, knowing that from this moment on, I was free of the family's dirty games. And this war had ended with my victory. 1 year after the storm. A year passed, and everything was different. Lucas grew fast, bright eyes, an easy, innocent smile. He had full medical care, a good school, all funded through a trust I set up solely in his name. No ties to anyone else, just Lucas, Cassandra. To my surprise, she actually changed. She still has sides that keep me cautious, but I see her trying. She has a steady job, pays her rent on time. Every week, she shows up for therapy, learning to own her mistakes and stand on her own 2 feet. No more midnight calls for rescue. No more lies to cover bad decisions. As for me, I chose to let Adam live on, not through the pain, but through something good. I created the Adam Scholarship Fund, supporting students in engineering, the field he devoted his life to. Every time I award a scholarship, I feel like I'm sending a piece of his legacy into the world, turning loss into light for someone else. My life didn't go back to the way it was, but it became steadier, calmer. Most importantly, I stepped out of the cycle of enabling and hurting and into a new chapter, one where I set my own boundaries and define my own worth. People sometimes ask me, after everything, did I forgive Cassandra? Forgiveness isn't erasing what happened, and it's not pretending the wound never existed. For me, forgiveness means accepting that it happened and choosing not to let it control me anymore. I've learned that boundaries aren't a cold wall. They're a shield. I can help Lucas without getting pulled into Cassandra's chaos. I can love my family without trading away my peace. Every morning, I wake up to a quiet house, sunlight pouring through the window. No sudden calls dragging me back into trouble. No more proving my worth to people who never saw it in the first place. Adam taught me something I'll carry for the rest of my life. Sometimes the best way to love your family is to know when to say no. And I want to pass that to anyone listening right now. If you're stuck in an unhealthy family dynamic, remember you have the right to draw the line. You have the right to protect yourself, and you deserve a life where you decide where it's headed. If this story struck a chord with you, share your own experience in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because the stories ahead prove that sometimes the truth is even stranger than fiction.